for the intro. I just want to say thank you to the team at Creative Mornings for inviting me to speak here. It's really super honored to do this, and thank you guys for coming. I moved back to Tucson just 2 years ago, and I found that this community, the creative community, has been so supportive and awesome, and it's just a great feeling to be here. So I'll get started. So to open, I thought I would cite a part of a quote from the great Maya Angelou. I have great respect for the past. If you don't know where you've come from, you don't know where you're going. So this makes so much sense for me as I talk today about the theme of roots, because when I think of roots, I think of home. And when I think of that for myself, I think of the roots of who I am. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my journey. So I was born in Mexico. My mother is full Mexican, and my father is, my father is full Japanese. And then we moved shortly to Tucson when I was young. So especially on the Asian end of my family, as the firstborn, I'm pretty sure I was expected to be a lot of things. Two of those things being, so one was a boy, a male, and number two was really good at math. I know it's an unspoken truth, we don't talk about it, but I know it's there, but it's okay. So much to my parents' dismay, I came out a girl, and I would later find out that I was really bad at math. Sorry. But growing up, I always knew that art was a part of who I was. I always considered myself as a creative person from a young age, whether it was music, instruments, or painting or drawing. So when I was in high school, I got deeper into my art and I started taking oil painting classes at a studio near my home with a wonderful teacher named Patricia Murray, if any of you guys know her. She was over on the east side. And I took classes in her in-home studio, and then later on, she opened up a brick and mortar studio called You Can Paint. In those days of being a teenager in high school and having all that angst, painting was really an outlet for me. It became something really special to me. Oil painting is special in the way that it teaches you a lot of patience. Unlike acrylic paint, oil takes a long time to dry. So often you have to wait, days to move on to your next step. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out these slides. Sorry, bear with me. So the way that Patricia taught was to copy other paintings. Oh, are you controlling it? Somebody's moving this.
The right key is going to keep you going. That way. Left key's gonna go backwards.
Okay.
Sorry.
So where am I here?
I mean, you're cute though.
You just keep seeing my face.
Is that where you want to be, or you want to keep going?
No, there was back still.
Oh, back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this was the previous slide.
Yeah, there.
Okay.
So the way that Patricia taught us to paint was to copy other paintings. We would first do this, and then we could go on to copy photos or still lives. And what this taught us was to imitate the way that the artists use color, brush strokes, perspective, all of that. So as I started to look for subjects, I found and fell in love with an Italian artist named Pino. There I am again. So I love the way that he painted. This is one of his works. I love the use of his color palettes. And I've always had an infatuation with painting portraits and the human shape, especially the female body. And Pino always painted females and children. So what I love about painting females and the body is that there's sort of a sculpting technique involved. So you have to work a lot with creating shapes by using shadows and highlights. I loved Pinot's use of impressionistic brushstrokes combined with the fine details of the face and the hands. So I started painting a couple of his works. So here's one of my renditions of his paintings, which now hangs in my mother's home because her home is like a little mini Akiko gallery. So see my little funny like teenage Akiko signature there. Here's another still life I did when I was around 17. It's not a Pinot, but just kind of like what I liked, the style that I like to paint. And during this time, I really perfected my craft. And it was then that I thought to myself, wow, like maybe I could actually be a painter. I could actually be an artist. But I knew that art was becoming something that was defining me and defining who I was going to become. Art just felt like home to me, and I thought, well, maybe I could really do this someday. This was one of my favorite Pinot paintings. This is my rendition of it. I love the colors, the brush strokes. So then senior year comes around and you're trying to find out what am I going to do with my life, filling out college applications. And I thought about going to art school. And I thought, in my mind then, I thought, okay, well that's going to mean two things. Number one, I'll become a starving artist, which if people that know me know I love to eat, so that wasn't going to work. And number two, I was going to become an art teacher, an instructor. And I didn't have too much of a problem with that, but I had my art teacher at the time in high school, Mr. Cavell, who was an amazing man, as sort of like an example, and he was fucking miserable. And I don't blame him. So what did I do? I enrolled at ASU as a business major. Because that's the thing that I thought I was supposed to do. And once you go to business school, you're going to come out like some kind of entrepreneur mogul, of course, but no. But long story short, I lasted one semester. I just knew that it wasn't for me. So I decided to enroll at FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in LA, right after that first semester. Because like art, I've always liked fashion. So fashion and art really coincide with each other. And I found a really great program called Visual Communications. And it kind of combined everything that I thought that I liked. It offered roles for positions in like wardrobe styling, prop styling, and window and in-store merchandising, which is what I went into. I ended up focusing in that. I moved out to LA, I started school, and quickly found that I excelled in it. I really loved it. I was even able to get a job right away, working with Banana Republic and in-store merchandising and window display. And from then on, my sort of career took off. I started working in e-commerce shortly after, and that was a huge step for me financially and professionally. So working in web, I was essentially doing the same things I was doing in stores, where I was merchandising the web pages in the same way that you would merchandise a window display. And I worked for some really large corporations like Pacific Sunwear, Quicksilver, Volcom, and more. And throughout this whole time in school and jobs, moving around Southern California, I always brought this painting with me. It never left my side. And as some of you might know, like living in LA as a young person, you're pretty broke. But throughout all these jobs, like this painting was always with me. The thing with working with these large corporations, though, is that there's not a lot of room for creativity left. So your days are really filled with hours and hours of meetings, and all through this time I really questioned the existence of my role. I look back at this period as a little bit of a dark time because I wasn't really getting to do what I thought I was going to be doing, which was to be creative. And it's not that I was depressed or sad or anything. I actually am very thankful for those days. I was able to have 2 children and on benefits, which is amazing and very necessary. And I was able to have maternity leave to spend time with them. And I learned a wide spectrum of things that I now use for my businesses. But I think there was just still something missing inside of me, that innate feeling that I need to create. The best way I can describe it is that someone just kind of put out my light. And I would later come to find out that that someone was me. So it was through this dark time, though, that I started finding my path to my light again. I started doing weddings mostly as a side hobby, mostly planning and coordinating. It was sort of like a creative outlet for me. So I would travel back and forth from LA to Tucson, and I worked with a partner here. Put that one again. Called her company is called Sowing Girls. We did mostly planning, and eventually people started asking me to do their flowers, and like every other creative endeavor, I just kind of threw myself into it. And when I was creating florals for couples, there was just no exhaustion, no darkness. And in the beginning, of course, I was mostly copying things in the same way that I copied paintings. But this really helped me learn and perfect my craft. And each wedding was an opportunity for me to learn more, to get better, and to start to develop my own sense of floral style. Through observing other people's work, I learned how to create color stories, how to use the right flowers, create different shapes, proportions, etc. So when I flower, I very much feel like I'm sculpting, the same way that I did when I was painting. And in the beginning, I wasn't very good, but I persevered because I liked it. I brought myself back to that 17-year-old me, lost in the depths of creating with my hands and just letting go of all the angst and just being. It truly brought me back home. Floral art sort of just fell into my lap as a medium, but I was back to creating. After several years of doing that while still working, after my second child, I came to sort of a crossroads. I really wanted to choose between, I was torn between choosing between my career and my passion. I remember distinctly yearning for some type of clarity, but the only thing I knew is that I needed to follow that which called me, and this career was not so. In 2015, I decided to branch off and start my own full floral business, Bloom Maven. The intention was eventually to open up my own shop. And it's a funny thing once you decide to do something, the doors really opened up for me quickly. I quit my job and pursued florals and weddings full time. And one day I randomly emailed Kira, the owner of the Mercado, and I just told her, my ideas for opening a flower shop. And to my surprise, she had actually been looking for a florist, and she told me she had the perfect space for me. So in December of 2017, we moved our little family back to Tucson, which is back home for me. And I opened up my first brick and mortar shop, Bloom Maven, at the Mercado. So this shop and this business has returned me to my truest self. I often spend quiet mornings by myself in the shop, just before it opens, just creating and making things. And these are just my favorite times. I'm constantly inspired to create new things, and I'm challenged to do more by my clients, which is really exciting. So now my light is lit and it is burning. So this quote very much embodies my experience, so I wanted to share it. It's by the English author J.R.R. Tolkien, author of The Lord of the Rings. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. It's still pretty surreal to me to say that I'm a florist. Our shop is now turning 2 years, and still calling myself that is just weird. It doesn't make sense in my brain. These days, however, my artistic medium is very defined, and I'm very much a florist. and flowers are my art. I hope someday to return to painting and come full circle, but for now, these flowers are my paint. So my advice to you as creators and as artists is to find the thing that makes you you and follow it with intention, with great purpose and passion. There may not be a clear and easy path, as there rarely is. But when you find that thing that is innately you, you will find the thing that makes the most sense to your soul. You will find your light and the way to your truest self, that which feels like home. Thank you.
So we're now going to open it up to any questions. So just raise your hand. Do you have any? Yes, in the back.
What was the hardest thing about taking that leap for you from LA to flower shop?
Well, the hardest thing is losing the stability, for sure. Especially once you have a family, you have to worry about that. But I would say it's just about trusting in that. I know it sounds cliche, but it really is true. And like I said, once I made that decision, once I quit my job and said this is what I'm gonna do, all the things just kind of came to it. But yeah, that was definitely, I mean, you need that stability, especially when you have children, but it just kind of ended up working out.
Yes.
You mentioned family. Are your family members also involved in your business?
No, actually, they are not. No, my husband has his own business. He owns Kukai, and that was another reason of moving to Tucson also, was because Tucson, sort of lends itself to be able to be your own business owner, and that was going to be a lot more difficult in Los Angeles. So, but yeah, no, I do it on my own. My husband has always helped me in my business, and my mom does too, and we all kind of help out, but it's kind of my own thing.
The kids aren't there yet?
Not yet, but the little one, he likes to flowers. So I think we have something there.
Yes.
Did you have any mentors or close friends that really helped you along the way?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I think I've always sort of surrounded me with myself with creative people. As far as a florist, not really, but I think that there are a lot of people, especially in this community that I knew just from growing up. I've always sort of looked up to the ladies at Mast, so it's really an honor to be directly next to them now. So, I've always looked to them as sort of an inspiration for my business.
Did you still have your question?
Yeah. What advice do you have for people who want to leave that corporate job or some sort of career job in business, and they do know what they want and they make that decision, but then they start getting scared and second guessing themselves? Do you have any good advice for how to keep moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, what I did is I kind of eased into it. So it wasn't one day I just quit my job. So I did the whole traveling thing for 6 years. So I was working full time Monday through Friday, and that was coming here, driving sometimes from LA to Tucson. And that really helped me just to ease into it, so it wasn't like a harsh stop. And really to perfect what it is that I wanted to do. For a lot of years, I remember telling friends, no, I'm not going to open up a flower shop. That means I won't have any weekends or holidays, which I don't. So. But yeah, I mean, it's a process. It takes time, but I think that easing into it and doing, that putting in those hustling hours as a side business, it really helped me to get into it.
Was there ever any fear about breaking into such a big industry in the sense of gaining exposure into some, or just in flowers in general?
Yeah, definitely. And I actually tried to do this in LA, which was even worse. And I didn't find that there was the same sort of community aspect of it. But Tucson is actually a really great place to start a creative business, because people are really willing to work with each other. And one great example is styled photo shoots. So as florists, We have to have portfolio work, and styled photo shoots is a great way to get that work. And when I tried to do in LA, it was extremely difficult to get people to work with me and collaborate. Whereas here, like, you know, I was telling you, I can just call up a handful of photographers and different vendors and stuff, and we can put together a photo shoot, and it just works organically here.
Saw a hand over there.
Oh, I was just wondering, in terms of, like, I love the idea of easing into a creative career. Where or how, when you're juggling a career and family and travel, do you find the energy or capacity or finances to be able to do that?
Oh my. I don't know that I found that. I don't know, I just do it. I mean, my husband's always told me, like, you're obsessed with what you do. Like, I wake up, I start working, I go home, I keep working, you know, and I go with my kids, and then I just keep working until my eyeballs, like, want to fall out. Like, it's just sort of an obsession. I try to balance things by compartmentalizing, is that the right word? So saying, you know, like, these 2 hours I'm sort of going to block off for my children, and then this full hour I'm just going to work on emails, and then this hour I'm going to work on proposals. So that's sort of like the way that I make it work. But it's definitely extreme, and it's a balancing act for sure.
All right, let's do one more question.
I
And
just
then,
want to know, what's your favorite flower if you had to pick one?
Oh, I know. If I had to pick one. Well, I'm sort of obsessed with the color mustard. So there's this beautiful rose called a copper rose. It was actually in the arrangement that I made at the end. And it's just a stunning flower and a stunning color, and a lot of people haven't seen it. And then I would say the ranunculus is probably my other favorite.
all right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bob.